evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Salute the Songbird. I'm your host, Maggie Rose. And tonight, thank you, we're joined by one of the most electrifying musicians in bluegrass and music in general today. She's a two-time Grammy winner, the first woman ever named Guitar Player of the Year by the IBMA, and an artist who has redefined the genre of bluegrass for a new generation. She grew up in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley, but instead of startups, she was building a career in music, flat-picking her way into history. She's collaborated with legends like Jerry Douglas, Dave Matthews, her partner Ketch Secor of Old Crow Medicine Show, Ringo Starr, a Beatle, Billy Strings, and she tours with her band Golden Highway, proving that bluegrass isn't just surviving, but thriving in the mainstream. Everybody, Molly Tuttle, welcome to the stage. First of all, thanks for being here tonight. I know that the rest of your band has gone ahead to go to Lubbock, Texas for a rescheduled show.
A rescheduled show. We are on tour all spring, opening up for Brooks and Dunn.
Nice.
It's been really fun so far. We were supposed to have 3 shows last weekend, the first one being in Lubbock, Texas, and we're on the bus from Nashville making our way. We've gone about 5.5 hours. We're like in Little Rock, and they called us and said, the show's off, head straight to Austin, because that's where the show the following day was. There were these crazy electrical fires happening at Texas Tech, where the arena was where they were playing. And the show got rescheduled to tomorrow, which is such a fast reschedule. It was supposed to be last Thursday, now it's this Thursday. So I'm hopping on a plane bright and early tomorrow to Lubbock, Texas.
She stayed behind so she could be with us tonight. You said there's like neon green smoke shooting out of the manholes?
Yes.
Be safe. The Ninja Turtles are on the loose.
Yeah, go home and Google it. Literally green flames shooting up, like blowing the manhole covers up into the air. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, be careful out there.
I will. I'm scared. I'm like, is it going to happen? Like, what's going on now in Lubbock? Is it okay?
Usually, I feel like rescheduled shows happen kind of further in advance, so it's cool that you're jumping into it. We're rescheduling a show in May for one we were supposed to do in Asheville with Tedeschi Trucks in November.
Wow.
Different circumstances, but we appreciate you being here and letting
Thanks
your band go
me.
ahead. I want to orient the audience with who you are, which everyone in here pretty much knows, but growing up in Palo Alto, in Silicon Valley, the land of all the tech startups, and you ended up being a musician.
Somehow ended up playing bluegrass music.
Well, you do have a very musical family.
I do, yeah. So my dad is a musician. He's taught music in Palo Alto for so long now, like almost 50 years probably, and he grew up on a farm in Illinois in the farm country, a little bit southwest of Chicago, in a little town called Yorkville, and went to school for agricultural economics, then decided I don't really want to take over the family farm, but heard the music of David Grisman and Tony Rice, and all of that was happening in the Bay Area, so got in his car, drove out to California, and met my mom, who was born and raised in Palo Alto. She actually worked at Apple computers in the 80s, which makes a little more sense than the Silicon Valley connection. But yeah, my dad was my first guitar teacher.
That's so cool. Are you techie at all?
I am not at all.
Okay.
I have an iPhone 11, which now apparently is really old.
I think my dad has an iPhone 11 too. He's in the audience. But you have a great social media presence, so whatever you have, it's working. We don't need all the fancy gadgets. And you're very analog in your ability to play guitar. There's no technology that's going to help these machines that you have right here. So you started a band with your brothers as well. And I mistakenly thought that Kyle Tuttle, who's in your band, was one of your brothers. Yes. For all these years, I've known him.
It's an easy confusion to have. Like, lots of people think Kyle is my brother, Kyle Tuttle, who's been playing with me now for 3 years. And we joke about it on stage a little bit. Sometimes we say, like, we were married, and then we got a divorce, and I let him keep my last name. But that just kind of further confuses people. We even had it, like, get written up in, like, a local paper in Colorado that we were married and divorced. So we try to keep the jokes at bay now because it confuses a lot of people. But we have talked about how we're brother and sister, but we're not actually related at all.
Keep them guessing. I know both of you, and I didn't know that. So,
but I was thinking about this backstage. My middle name is Rose, so we could start a rumor.
We're also married once upon a time.
Yes. We got Molly Rose, Maggie Rose.
I mean, it's Nashville. It's bluegrass and country music.
Related.
We're all related somehow, somewhere. But yeah, your brothers Sullivan and Michael, you guys started a band called The Tuttles and...
The Tuttles with AJ Lee. It's not a very catchy band name. We had my two younger brothers, Sullivan and Michael. Sully plays guitar, and he's still playing with our friend AJ Lee that we grew up playing music with. They have a band called AJ Lee and Blue Summit, and they tour all over the place. My youngest brother did end up going into AI development. He works at a company called Qualcomm. Maybe some of you have heard of it. I had never heard of it before.
We got some Qualcomm fans in here, it sounds like. Well, so you kind of never stood a chance to not be in music or one of your family members in tech. And I also read that your aunt took guitar lessons from Bob Weir.
Yes, this is like one of my mom's side of the family's claim to fame. My aunt, they all grew up in Palo Alto and Menlo Park, and Bob Weir would come to the high school with his guitar and try to pick up guitar students. And my aunt took a few lessons from him. She was actually at a Grateful Dead show at the Fillmore. She wanted to see her guitar teacher playing on stage with the Grateful Dead. And she was just, hanging out at the show, drinking some punch, and he goes up and says, "Don't drink the punch." But it was too late, and she got home to my grandma's house and said all of a sudden there were like white rabbits. It was like she was in Alice in Wonderland, so.
Well, now you have a great White Rabbit video.
Yes.
Do we owe that to your aunt? Well, that sounds pretty epic to have been at the Fillmore at that time. And you went to the same high school as Jerry Garcia. I just got to get my Grateful Dead.
I thought I did. I think I probably said that one point. I did not. I went to the same high school as Bill Kreutzmann.
Oh, okay.
Palo Alto High. And I ended up getting to play with him a couple years ago, and we were like, yeah, Pally High. I didn't technically graduate, so I couldn't say like Pally High grads, but
well, that's okay. You got the alma mater.
Yes.
I'm sure they claim you happily. And then you spent some time at Berklee School of Music. Did you? What degree did you get there?
Also, did not graduate from Berklee. Yeah, I got.
I'm also a college dropout,
nice.
So we got our PhD in music.
The School of Hard Knocks.
Moving to Nashville.
Yeah.
But what positive experiences did you take away from being at Berklee?
I just loved getting to meet so many other amazing creative musicians. In my band Golden Highway, Bronwyn, who plays fiddle with me, I met her at Berklee, and Kyle and Dom also went to Berklee a little bit ahead of me, but I kind of met them through that scene as well. I loved my classes too, and part of me really wanted to stay the full course and get my degree, but I was never really that good at music theory, and also wanted to move to Nashville and just start making records. But I loved taking the songwriting classes and learning from different guitar teachers. It was so cool to get to take lessons with guitar players from so many different styles of music. I had a teacher who was really into Joni Mitchell, and she would show me her open guitar tunings, and then another teacher would try to get me to play Bach pieces on the guitar, and it was really hard, but it was like such a fun challenge. And so it was just a really cool way to kind of broaden my mind to different styles of music and meet some amazing people.
I didn't realize that you met so many of your bandmates at Berklee.
I know, it's crazy.
And I think, I have to just say, your relationship with Golden Highway, I've seen you guys in a bunch of different spaces, and it's just so, the admiration that you all have for each other is very evident.
Oh, thank
you. But one thing in particular that's so cool is how Bronwyn has just been a Grammy nominee with her album. And, you were such a big conduit for her in her first Grammy win with the albums that she played on with you. But then you were featured on this album, and it just really is such an authentic showing of support for each other and your individual and collective ambitions. And that's really special to witness. Like, if you guys know Bronwyn's music, it's amazing. And she's just kind of stepped out as a front person, but I know that
really
you've
cool to see.
Facilitated that a lot is
thanks.
what it
so I don't
reads
want to
to
take
me.
credit for it, but I've loved getting to witness her performance just kind of take off, and she's become such a confident performer on fiddle and now voice as well. She's leading her own band and singing all the songs, and it's so cool to see that evolution and just kind of think back to when, like 10 years ago, when we were both kind of getting out of school and just trying to figure out what we were doing, and then to see years later we get to play on stage together, and it's so exciting. And I love getting to see you at the Grammys this last year.
That was fun. Yeah, thank you. Yes, the both of us were hopping around the Grammys, and it was cool to see Bronwyn nominated for Bluegrass album. And it's. I know you've been given lots of accolades from the IBMA, but also just like on the wider scope of being Grammy winning and nominated the way you are. It's like that's peers in all fields of music voting on what you do. And I think, Bluegrass is so revered and it's traditional and it's been around for a long time, but you've really brought it to the mainstream in a cool way, like with your old roommate, Billy Strings, and what you guys are doing in that scene is so exciting. And like, what do you feel about how people are embracing it in such a large scale?
Yeah, it's so cool to see. I went to, Billy played 2 nights at the Bridgestone Arena. I don't know why I'm pointing in that direction. I think it's actually in that direction. A couple weeks ago, and then he does his annual Ryman show. I got to go to one of the nights at Bridgestone, and I was just thinking, like, this is so wild to see these, like, songs that have been around for so long being played to, tens of thousands of people, and it just makes me think about, like, how my grandfather loved bluegrass music and played the banjo, and if only he could see, like, the new heights that it's come to today and the audience that it's reached. It's very cool. And even, like Bill Monroe or the people who created the genre, like, could they have even imagined that this would happen? It's cool to think about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's been really awesome to see how receptive traditionalists have been to this adoption from the mainstream, because by comparison, a lot of times traditional country fans, for example, will be a little resistant to the genre evolving sonically. And I feel like this has just been like the jamgrass scene and all of that has been really fun to watch. It's brought in a younger audience.
Totally.
I've seen Billy Strings at Bonnaroo, and the people around me are having a really good time. And I don't think would be what you would typically pin as like your typical bluegrass fan. But
totally,
you've had such a big role in doing that. And I think with your environment at Berkeley, it's kind of cool because everyone was in college. You all had like a similar focus of music, but then my experience coming to Nashville, it was hard to find my people. And you kind of found these people who've all gone on to have similar theories and philosophies about music. And like, how did that happen? Other than the people you found at Berkeley, of course.
Totally. I felt that, like, what you're saying, it was hard to find your people. I felt that when I moved here, too. For about the first year, I just felt, like, disconnected from the music scene. And I think when I was expecting it to be like when I went to college, and I just instantly fell in with the group of people, and I would see them every day at my classes, and, you'd hear about all the parties and the jam sessions. But when I moved here, it was like, whoa, I didn't have that as much, and it wasn't like instantly accessible. So I really had to, break out of my shell and try to go to concerts as much as possible. I'm not like naturally the most outgoing person, so I was always trying to like make friends somehow, Googling like, how do I make friends? And eventually I kind of met some, like-minded people. I think I had met Billy at a music conference called Folk Alliance, where bands go and showcase every year. And then I saw he had posted on Facebook, hey, me and my girlfriend Allie are looking for a roommate at our house in East Nashville. And I was wanting to move to East Nashville. And through that, I met Lindsay Liu, who we were talking about earlier. She lived across the street, and she had a rotating cast of roommate musicians, people coming through to just crash at her place. She would host house concerts and jam sessions. So that was really kind of how I found my group, just kind of through moving there and having people around all the time. And people would stay with us when they were off tour and stuff. So that was a great way to just be in the know. And
you fell into a really cool crew. I love all those people. Lindsay Lou's about 4 weeks behind me in her pregnancy, so we were on the Allman Family Revival Tour and bumping our bellies together at the end of our songs. And I thought she was about to be your sister-in-law because Kyle's her partner. But yeah, that's so. I think Nashville is kind of cliquey, which any industry town is, but then especially when you're someone who's like a little left of center in doing what you do so well, and it's very custom to you, it can be kind of hard, and you're like, I don't necessarily make music in that proposed template that the rest of Music Row makes music under, but it just, I think you're proof that if you stick to your guns and you do things the way that you want to do, and your musicianship just being as stellar as it is, like, you will find that audience, and it's just blown up. Like, Ringo Starr just asked you to collaborate with him. How did that happen?
That was wild. Thank you.
A Beatle. I know I said that, but it's a Beatle here.
That was so crazy. It kind of came about through meeting T-Bone Burnett, and he produced the latest Ringo Starr country record. This was about a year ago, and I met him. I've been a huge fan of T-Bone since I was a little kid. I think since we're talking about like bluegrass reaching such a big audience, the last time I felt that was when I was, probably in kindergarten, and Oh Brother Where Art Thou came out. And I remember hearing kids like on the playground at school singing like Man of Constant Sorrow and all these other bluegrass songs. I was like, wait a minute, this is the music that my dad listens to at home. So it was just so cool getting to meet T-Bone. Then he was telling me about going into work on the Ringo record and asked if I would come in and try singing on something. So that on top of getting to work with T-Bone Burnett, then finding out that, whoa, I might get to play with a Beatle. That's so cool. Then I got to just, over the course of a couple weeks, I would just go into the studio with them. They were always working at different studios around town. There's so many great ones in Nashville, obviously. So he would just send me a text each day and be like, we're at this studio at this time. Come in and try singing on something. It was a really just kind of loose and spontaneous process. Ringo was sending his songs. He would be like cutting his drum parts and his vocals in LA and then emailing them over. And then we would layer on top of that. So that was a fun way to work. And then around that time, they were also planning to play the Ryman whenever the record came out.
So this is over the span of, what was the timeline?
We probably started recording the Ringo album maybe in March, April, maybe even some in May. And then over the summers when they locked in, like, okay, we're going to play the Ryman, do like 2 nights, Ringo and Friends, kind of celebrating this new country record. And it was funny because at the Ryman they had the shirts for it. The album's called Look Up, and it said Look Up Tour, and it was just the 2 Ryman dates. Yeah. So I think they only really planned to do those 2 shows to celebrate the record, but then he went back and did his Opry debut a couple weeks ago, which was very cool to be part of too.
Yeah, you joined him for that, the 100 Opry show, and the Ryman special just aired on CBS, and it's amazing, and you can also see it on Paramount Plus. Yep. And you were joined by Larkin Poe, who was part of this super group that he assembled.
Yeah, it was an amazing band, and then there were a ton of special guests. Mickey Guyton was there, Jack White, Sheryl Crow, Larkin Poe, Billy Strings was there, the Warren Treaty. I'm probably forgetting many amazing people. There were a lot.
I mean, just like a insane cast of characters.
It was pretty insane.
And the fact that you were just receptive, waiting for these texts from T-Bone to be able to collaborate and get in wherever you could. And I think that there was one scheduling issue with the first show because there was a snowstorm, and then you found out you do need to be there in 2 hours.
Yeah, we had a few days blocked for rehearsing before the shows, and if any of you are from Nashville, you remember we had like a snowstorm in mid-January, and that was one of the rehearsal days, and they were like, rehearsal's off, and then come to find out the next day, they texted me, can you be here now? And also Ringo's here, and I had never met Ringo before, so
that was your first time meeting him.
It was, and I was still in my pajamas because I thought I had the day off, so I raced over in the snow, and then he just popped out of nowhere. I was like, whoa.
That's amazing. Just stunning. And didn't you do the first duet he's ever done with a woman? Wasn't that your role?
I think, yeah. Can You Hear Me Call?
That's incredible.
T-Bone texted me that after we did that. He was like, that is the first duet Ringo has sang with someone. So that was kind of blew my mind. And that was the first one I recorded for the album. And I was just I practiced it so much. I was trying so hard to get it right. And then after that, they kind of said, come back and sing on some more songs.
Yeah, because you were all over the album.
This episode of Salute the Songbird is brought to you by Bearded Man Coffee, elevating coffee from cafe to kitchen to campsite. Follow @BeardedManCoffee on socials.
How do you calm your nerves in a situation like that?
I was totally spiraling for weeks before the shows at the Ryman. I was like, oh,
yeah, I
man.
don't. Yeah.
I just try to keep it positive, but my brain, if I can latch onto any sort of anxiety, especially before a performance, I just have a hard time calming that down. But try to take a deep breath.
Some nerves are good though. Okay. If you just look at it as energy that you can redirect and
totally
try and use for good, then it helps. But sometimes physiology your body has different ideas.
Totally.
What did you learn, if anything, from working with Ringo?
It was just cool to I was so nervous going into it, and then to see him, he's so relaxed and so just happy. And the first night especially, everything didn't go according to plan because we were all just figuring out how to put on this show with so many moving parts. But the whole time he's just exuding so much joy, and he does the peace and love with the peace fingers, and it's just, you couldn't not have a good time. So I think that was something that ultimately, no matter what happened, it was just still such a wonderful experience. And then we got to go and do it night 2, which it went a lot smoother, and we had all the, the little order of the show was more ironed out and stuff. But just to see how excited he was to be there, it's like it was his first time performing. But he's done it all, but he just couldn't believe he got to be at the Ryman with all these cool people making a country record. And then to see him make his Opry debut, he was like, this is huge for me. I used to listen to the Opry back when it was at the Ryman, and just to see his enthusiasm was really inspiring.
Right, and that someone who's done as much as he has can
totally
still just feel that newness of playing a stage like the Opry. Yeah, having joy for what you do is going to make this sustainable. Yes. Something that we're going to want to keep doing for sure.
Totally.
Well, that's remarkable. And if you guys haven't seen it, you should definitely try and catch the Ryman special. Molly said that she was too nervous to have seen it herself yet. But I think that you're going to have a viewing of it.
I'll have to
soon.
Get a Paramount Plus subscription.
I think that I attribute that to your humility. Yeah. This is not brought to you by Paramount Plus, but if they would like to, I'm available to talk.
They'd like to give us free subscriptions so we can watch the show.
Well, that's awesome, and just a testament to you that he knew to call you up and involve you. I'm going to try and gracefully segue to another iconic man full of personality and character, your partner, Ketch Secor, who I love. Actually, last time I saw you, we were together at the Old Crow Medicine show for the New Year's Eve show. And your collaboration with him is so cool. I work with my husband as well, but not in the same capacity. And I kind of want to know what it's like, because I know that you wrote a lot of songs together on City of Gold, and I'm sure you've collaborated before that.
Yeah.
What is that dynamic like?
It's fun. I think in some ways it can be hard. You probably know this too. You feel free to say things that you probably wouldn't say to someone you barely know walking into a co-write or a work situation. So if he has an idea and I don't like it, I'm just no, that's not happening.
Efficient. Yeah.
But it also is nice in a way because that frees you to really write stuff you care about, and you can share an idea that you might be too scared to say in front of someone else. So and also when we started writing songs, we would just be hanging out, going to visit my grandma, and that would inspire a song, or talking about something that happened to one of us last week, and that would inspire a song. So it's just kind of, you have that constant dialogue, and you can also write songs in the car. You can write them on a road trip or when you're at a show or something backstage. So I just like that, that flexibility, and also just having the open communication about it.
Yeah, I think you can get to the good stuff pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Eliminate the bad ideas.
Totally.
What have you taught each other as writers, you think?
I think I've learned a lot from Ketch about, like, you know, he's a great lyricist, and he has this really great way with words where I'll just see how he's, like, stringing words together in a really, you know, he kind of has this way of knowing which words will sound good together, and he'll be like, okay, we need, like, 3 words here that all sound like this. And so I think he just has these little intentional formulas that he uses that are really helpful, especially when you get stuck. Like, what am I trying to say? And then as far as what he's learned from me, I don't know. I mean, I think, like, he's really proud of the songs we've written together. And I feel like sometimes I'm kind of supplying more of the, like, chordal or, like, melodic ideas that he might not have thought of. But I don't know. I think there's definitely, like, a give and take where we're both learning from each other all the time.
I feel like the first time you ever wrote had to be like, ooh, this could go very wrong. Like, you want to collaborate with someone that you love, but then you've gone into the territory from which you cannot return. But you guys have such a cool collaborative energy. He's also, you know, your joint response to events like the Covenant school shooting, that was such a cool show of solidarity that you guys, you know, performing together down by the Capitol. He's very vociferous, I'll say. He's a very outspoken person.
Yes.
And I think the way you approach things is a little bit different, but together you're working on that and how you responded. Do you think that he kind of brings out that voice in you at all, or how do you guys find the balance there? Because you seem high energy but mellow by Ketch's
he's
vaudevillian and kind of crazy.
I think it's a good balance because, like, I feel a little more of, like, the subdued, you know, I'll just, like, get home from tour and want to, like, lie around on the couch watching TV. Like, if I could be any animal, it would be a sloth. Like, I just want to, like, lie around. But he's kind of the opposite, so he kind of balances me out. And then as far as, like, causes that we both often care about, like, a lot of the same causes, and he can juggle so many things at once. So he has so many organizations he's involved with. I'm kind of, like, different in that I feel like I focus in on certain things, but I love supporting him with a lot of the work that he does, especially around gun violence. He's been working on a really meaningful documentary called Louder Than Guns, and I was around for a lot of the filming of that, and it was really moving to see that come together.
The other partnership that you have that's really cool over the years has been your working with Jerry Douglas on your records. And, you know, he's regarded as the finest dobro player in contemporary music and just like a complete bluegrass legend. But how did you guys meet and come together and decide to make these recordings together?
Yeah, I can't pinpoint exactly when we met, but I remember the first time, like, working with him extensively was, I want to say it was like 2019 or 2018, and he puts together a tour every year in the UK and in Ireland. It's called Transatlantic Sessions, and he brings over a few musicians from the States, and then there's English and Scottish and Irish musicians over there, and you all get together and put together a show, and then you go on tour for about 10 days. So I did that, and I got to see how he puts together a band and how he works out arrangements, and he's basically like being the producer of the show. So when it came to making my first bluegrass record, Crooked Tree, I called him up because I just really liked how he worked, and I felt comfortable around him. Like, we'd spent a bunch of time around each other making music, and I just knew he'd be a fun person to work with. And so, yeah, it was the summer of 2021, and stuff was opening up a little bit after the pandemic. People were starting to go back on tour, but not very much. And I just knew it was like a sweet spot where I knew a lot of the people who were on tour usually would be in town. And I was like, I really want to catch all these people before they get busy again and make a record. So we went in for a couple weeks and tracked that album, Crooked Tree.
That album is stunning.
Thanks.
And you worked on City of Gold together as well?
We did, yeah. And so that one was different because I had put together my touring band with Ronwin and Shelby and Dominic and Kyle. So right when I put that band together, I felt so inspired. I was like, I want to write a whole new batch of bluegrass songs to record with the live band. And so then we kind of got to work with Jerry in a more band context versus the first album. It was a lot more, studio musicians, people who had been like heroes of mine growing up. We had like Ron Block, who plays with Alison Krauss in Union Station, and Jason Carter, who plays with the Del McCurry Band, and a bunch of heroes of mine. It was so cool, but it was kind of like a totally different experience making it with a band that had already played like 100 shows together.
Oh, I didn't. They had, because they assembled all of them
together. The second album, yeah.
Totally.
City of Gold we made once we'd kind of been on tour for like a year.
Where did you record these albums?
We did the first one at Ocean Way, so Crooked Tree was all recorded over at Ocean Way, and then the second one, City of Gold, was at Sound Emporium.
Okay, Ocean Way is so beautiful. I feel like I've seen some footage of your recordings from there. And just that you got to pull together all these bluegrass musicians and honor people like that who've influenced you. I think
really fun.
That's cool to pay respect to everybody. We talked about some thrilling moments that you've had on stage with people like Ringo Starr and Billy Strings, but you're kind of the queen of the sit-in. Like, I feel like everywhere.
So are you.
I love a sit-in. It's kind of crazy fun. And chaos can ensue, and you always are asked last minute, and you try to throw something together.
To them. Even if it's a bad idea, I'm not going to say no to a sit-in.
I want to talk about a few of your favorite sit-ins. Which one comes to mind as one of the most, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to be on stage with this person?
Oh man, I loved sitting in with Dave Matthews the couple times I got to open for him, and I know you did the Gorge with him as well, and that was one where he asked me the day of the show to come in and
you're like, come on, couldn't you have asked me like last week? I would have been prepared. But.
So I was like cramming the songs into my brain, but that was so magical to get to play with him and his band. And we did Ants Marching, which is a song of his that has a very long kind of jam session. And he had me and Bronwyn trading off, and the whole band just stopped playing. And we were just left to play.
Just exposed.
And we didn't know how long that was going to happen for. And there were like 30,000 people watching us, and we're like, cool.
I'm sure it was awesome.
It was really fun. It was very thrilling.
We're all going to go YouTube that later tonight. That sounds exhilarating.
It was.
But that's sort of what I love about it.
Yeah, me too.
Again, right after your set, you get the call from the tour manager, hey, can you sit in on this song? And then you're just like in your green room rocking back and forth trying to cram in lyrics to your head, or in your case lyrics and chords and improvising. And it's not like Dave Matthews Band ever plays the same the song the same way. You never know what's gonna happen twice.
But that's part of what makes it so exciting and fun.
Any catastrophic sit-ins, or do we not want to?
Yes, one like just popped into my head when you said that. We opened up for Orville Peck a couple of years ago at the Greek Theater in LA, and that was really fun. Our set went totally fine. Nothing weird happened. And then I sat in. He asked me to sing a song with him, and he's a big fan of punk rock, and I grew up kind of listening to Bay Area punk rock bands, and I've always loved this band called Rancid, and I covered one of their songs called Olympia, Washington.
Olympia, Washington. I've been there. It is indeed punk rock.
Yes, that's when I first started playing it. We played in Olympia, Washington, and I was like, well, I got to play the song. But he had heard my cover of it, and he wanted to do it together. And I take a guitar solo on that one, and I was like tuning up my guitar before the set. They had like a tuner that I plugged into. I think it was one I'm not used to, so I was like tuning. Couldn't really hear my guitar because the band was really loud.
Yeah.
And I'm playing, so I get out there, I'm playing my solo. One of my strings is a half step off. And it was a string I was playing on a lot. So it was like my E string, and I'm like going up the neck, like then trying to recorrect for it, trying to figure out what's going on, but I didn't know what was happening. So my band afterwards, they said, we didn't want to believe that was you playing.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So supportive. And you're like, I'm up here doing like math, trying to play.
I didn't know and then I played it afterwards. I was like, oh my God.
Well, I mean,
So now I always double check my
Blame it on the instrument. It's not your fault.
Yeah, maybe my guitar just did that in the moment.
Yeah, it betrayed you. It betrayed you. Well, I'm sorry to move on from... Do you want to mention another sit-in that was redeeming before we move on?
It's okay.
Okay, well, I love one of the causes that you are very vocal about. We have a young girl in the audience who also suffers from alopecia.
Hello.
You have so much fun with it. I have a T-shirt of you holding a wig in your hand.
Aww.
And I love seeing the shots on Instagram where there's thousands of people in front of you, and you've just finished your show, and your wig is proudly up in the air.
Thanks.
But I also think it's something that you've incorporated into like your fashion and your playfulness, and like I have to imagine that it's been something that you've just kind of dealt with your whole life, but it's had to have shaped your character. And I want to know kind of how that is incorporated into your music and dealing with that, what that means to you.
Yeah, it's been one of those things, like I lost all my hair when I was 3 years old, so it's kind of been like a whole lifetime of figuring out how do I deal with this? I remember as a little kid, I was very shy in school, so I wore hats all the time, but I didn't really want to talk about what was going on. And then I started wearing wigs when I was 14 or 15. I started high school, and I was at a new school. I was like, okay, I'm going to wear wigs. But I loved that because I could totally like blend in, and I always wanted to have hair because it just looked fun. Like I wanted to have something to brush and play with. And so that was really fun, but it also kind of made me feel like I was holding in this secret because I wasn't really telling anyone what was going on. But before, I was always wearing hats, and people could kind of tell I didn't have hair, and now nobody really knew what I was dealing with on the inside. So it took years to kind of figure out, how do I talk about this with my close friends? I would just open up to a handful of people at first, or like my roommates in college, tell them what's going on. Then when I started touring, that was a whole other thing. I'm like, am I gonna like sleep in my wig if I share a room with someone I don't really know that well? So that was another thing where I had to start, broadening the circle of people who I open up to about it. And then gradually I just kind of got to the point where I was like, why is this like a secret? I need to share this with people who listen to my music and share it with the world. It's nothing to be ashamed of. So I ended up playing music at a conference for people with alopecia, and it was so kind of life-changing to me when I flew out. I think it was in Miami the year that I went there, and I had messaged the National Alopecia Areata Foundation. I said, I have alopecia, I'm a musician, I would love to, perform at the conference sometime. I want to get more involved with like advocacy and spreading awareness. So I was about to board the plane to go to the conference, and I uploaded a picture on Instagram of me without a wig. Wow. And I just kind of wrote my story, like this is what I've been dealing with my whole life, basically. And then I turned my phone off on the plane. I was like, I can't look at it, I don't want to see. When I turned it back on, people, I had the nicest comments from people. Like, there were never any mean comments. I think as a kid, I used to get mean comments from other kids, and then I would think, oh, that's how people are going to be when I'm an adult too. So it was just really reassuring, and that was kind of a pivotal moment for me where then I realized it was not only helping myself, but it was kind of helping others to just be open about this experience. So then from there, I was like, well, now I want to take my wig off on stage sometime, and every little step has been kind of a new challenge, and just becoming more accepting and celebrating everyone's differences.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, I've been in your audiences, and I've seen people who are also dealing with alopecia out there, and it's the hot summer sun, and they're not wearing their wigs, and I think you've kind of given them the courage to do that. Also, you look awesome without it.
Thank you.
And I think one thing, you posted this really funny meme a while ago where you're like, people always come up to me, they're like, it's just hair. We'll shave your head then. And I thought that was, it's like this thing you deal with that I think sometimes some people can minimize, some people can maximize, and people that deal with it probably feel isolated and alone. And you're kind of helping paint the nuance of what that is, and being a performer and being such a visible person, how you've had fun with it. Your hair always looks amazing, and it's fun, and it's exciting, and I'm always looking forward to seeing what kind of hair you're wearing.
Thanks.
I mean, you've thrived in this, so it's really fun and inspiring. I want to end our conversation. There's a lot more I'd love to talk to you about, but we have to wrap up and talk about what your favorite part about being a woman in this industry is, especially because there are so many women that you've shared your stage with and that you've inspired. How do you feel like that perspective has helped you in this industry?
Yeah, I think it's like a really meaningful time to be a woman in this industry. I feel like there's, we need more strong women out there on stages everywhere, hopefully inspiring the next generation. And when I was starting out, going to music school and playing guitar, there weren't really any other women in my classes for guitar, and I just didn't see that many lead guitarists around who looked like me. So it kind of gave me an extra motivation in a way to just be encouraging to young girls that I met who wanted to do this. And I also think it's just like, we have fun. Like, it's fun to be a lady and get to go on tour with your friends, and I like having women in my touring party, and like we were just talking about different stylists we like to work with, and like we get to dress up and do this for our job. And that's not to say that like guys don't do that too, or that you have to dress up or dress a certain way or look a certain way, but I don't know. I think it's something I get asked a lot, and I think there's definitely like extra struggles that come from being a woman in like a male-dominated industry, but it also can make you stand out in a way, and it's like it's important to be out there doing it.
Well, and I would say specific to you, not only being an artist and in this industry, but being the instrumentalist that you are and regarded the way you are, you are a statistic that we want to see more of. We want to see more women celebrated specifically in that space of being a guitar player. And you make us all very proud in how you do that, because it can be a boys' club sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is definitely one of my favorite parts about being a woman in the industry is being able to sit here and talk with you, and I'm so appreciative that you stayed behind and you're joining your band in Texas tomorrow. We all love you, and we're so excited for you, and you should be so proud of all the success you've had recently. Molly Tuttle, everybody.
Thank you.